Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corman Productions, here to talk about This Is Us, Season 6, Episode 5, titled Heart and Soul. The episode's description reads as follows. Kevin visits the construction site. Malik and Deja share controversial news at dinner. The episode was directed by Milo Ventimiglia, who plays Jack on this series. He's directed 3 other episodes, including last season's Jerry 2.0. The episode was written by Dan Fogelman and Kevin Falls. Before going any further, I will tell you a couple of things. 1. This is not a spoiler-free video, so if you haven't yet watched the episode, I highly recommend that you go check it out, and then watch my reaction video. Secondly, if you like this video and want to support the channel, please hit me up with a like, share, comment, and please subscribe to my channel. This was a very good episode, in which 2 out of the 3 of the big 3 take an L. It's only the second episode this season that I really liked, and it actually takes care of some issues that I had with the second episode this season. I thought in that episode that we were kicking Nikki out of the story, and that turns out not to be the case as he makes an appearance here with his first interactions with Kevin of the season. I still think the reveal that the person honking their horn in the future timeline turned out to be Nikki's future wife was a lame resolution to that particular mystery. And I still wish that Deja and Malik's story in that episode had had a little bit more depth to it than it was given. However, it appears that Deja is getting that much needed storyline that she was not given at all, really, last season. We start off in the past timeline with Rebecca and Kate, the very young 5-year-old Kate, who's playing piano with her mother. And at first, I thought this was a superfluous reason to get Jack into the episode because he's not in the rest of the episode. This opening scene is the only time that we see Jack, which I suspect had much to do with the fact that he was in fact directing. But as it turns out, this little glimmer in the past timeline actually connects to the events going on in the current day, which truthfully hasn't happened very much during the course of this season so far. We cut a little bit further in the timeline to the teen timeline, when we see Kate, played by Hannah Zeel, applying makeup in the mirror. This is the first time that we are seeing the teens this season, though Hannah Zeel is the only one of the teenage big 3 that we see this episode. She comes out of her room to see Miguel and Rebecca sitting on the couch, watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, a show which started in 1998. By the way, I forget sometimes that John Hurtis is not actually an old man, because we very rarely see the younger Miguel in this series. Most of the time that we see him nowadays is his current day self, which is as an old man. Kate gives a sarcastic spiel about how she often thinks about how sad her life is, but then she looks at the 2 of them watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and then she feels a little bit better about herself. She takes off to Molly's with a parting shot of try not to throw a rager while she's gone. Rebecca ends up commenting that she doesn't think her life is sad. What do you think, Miguel? And Miguel goes along with it, but then he suggests something that he heard about from work, and that would be speed dating. And he suggests that Miguel and Rebecca give it a try. Rebecca is reluctant, but Miguel thinks it's time, so she goes along with it. Miguel ends up saying, "Hey, you can't just sit here with me for the rest of your life," which is funny, because that's exactly what she's going to end up doing, eventually. And credits. When we come back, older Rebecca is feeding Kate's child, specifically Haley. Kate comes out and thanks her mother for putting away the laundry, even though she didn't need to. Toby calls with some bad news. His boss has invited him to watch a Giants game from a yacht, and he says that he could certainly fly home, but Kate says that he should spend his time with Amir, getting to know his boss. Personally, Toby, given the fact that they were absolutely awful this season, I think you're making a mistake here. I don't know where exactly we are in the timeline, but what you're going to end up watching is an absolutely terrible game of football. But you do you, Toby. Rebecca ends up suggesting that she could stay with the kids while she goes to school, but Kate seems a little bit reluctant at that idea, for reasons that we will discover later. This is also a subtle hint that Kate and Toby's relationship is doomed. Though, it's going to have to get a lot less subtle pretty soon, because we only have so many episodes of this season, and we're going to have to destroy this relationship and get Kate with her boss. Once again, I am totally not looking forward to that particular storyline. Anyway, Kate ends up recommending that Rebecca come with her to the school because she hasn't been there in a while. Cut to Kevin, who's racing into Madison's house and trying to get Madison's attention because the kids are doing something cute. Nikki has identified his sister and has pointed at her. And when Madison and Kevin are celebrating this fact, their daughter ends up clapping in celebration, leading Madison to think that she's highly empathetic, and that it's not normal how kind she is. Madison's friend, future lover, Isaac, comes out from the bedroom, and Madison feels the need to point out that they were just hanging out. And Kevin's all like, in the bedroom? Yes, Kevin, because I am a grown woman. And Isaac says, obviously overhearing this conversation, that they were just watching YouTube videos. Oh yeah? You guys are watching YouTube videos, huh? Well, I'm a little biased here, but I recommend the latest Corman Productions video on the This Is Us episode. And Isaac, if you're watching, don't be jealous of my love for Madison. Isaac says to Kevin that he has a big weekend coming up. And Kevin says not really, he's just going to the cabin to oversee the construction. And while Kevin is doing that, Madison and Isaac are going to the zoo with the kids. And Madison's like, hey, you're okay with us going to the zoo for the first time with the kids, right? And Kevin's all like, oh yeah, totally, I'm totally cool with that. We just watched our first episode of Entourage, so I'm all good with formative experiences. Isaac suggests that Kevin and him exchange numbers, just in case. And Kevin seems to think that this is a good idea. I'm not sure Isaac is going to feel the same way when this episode concludes. Isaac does a technical thing and just airdrops it into Kevin's phone. Kevin apparently doesn't know about this ability, and neither do I. I guess that's fitting because we are both old, Kevin. I feel ya. I really feel ya. Driving away from the scene, Kevin decides to call Cassidy, played by Jennifer Morrison, and this takes care of my problem in the third episode of this season, in that we actually have a good chunk of Jennifer Morrison in this episode. She's playing with Pokemon cards, or putting them in those plastic holder things that you use to hold cards. I'm not sure if this is her own collection or her kids'. It could really go either way. Apparently, Cassidy's divorce is finalized, and Kevin ends up suggesting that she come along with him to the cabin to oversee the construction. Cassidy ends up asking Kevin, is this a sex thing? Because I'm okay. I'm okay with either way, but I just want to know, so I know how to pack. And Kevin gets all flustered because it wasn't exactly his idea for it to be a sex thing, but he doesn't mind if it goes that direction. And honestly, I think he kind of does, because I don't think he's thinking of this as a sex thing. I think his intentions are romantic in nature, which is something the episode ends up revealing to us. Cut to Randall and Beth. As it turns out, Malik is coming by, and he wants to make dinner for the family. They both sense a trap, wondering what Malik is up to. Is it an apology for what took place with Deja? You know, when Deja went to Boston and they get engaged in physical activities? Maybe, but Beth suggests, they need to play worst case scenario. A game in which they come up with the worst case scenarios. Randall's first possibility is that Deja is pregnant. Okay. How exactly did that conversation with Randall and Deja end when we weren't looking? She says, actually, that's going to be a problem the last time we see her in the third episode of the season. So, did they just leave it at that, or was there further discussion? That seems like an unnatural way for a conversation to end of that nature. It seems to me that Deja already has what she's going to say in mind during that episode. Did she just say, never mind, and Randall walked away? So I'm not really sure how Deja got out of that conversation without revealing what exactly is going on. But anyway, the game that they play ends up leaving them depressed and anxious. We cut to Miguel and Rebecca trying out speed dating, and as you would imagine, talking about your dead husband is not a big hit on the speed dating circuit. Who knew? I will keep that in mind if I ever try it. Present day, Rebecca and Kate are at Kate's school. Kate ends up suggesting that Rebecca be a guest musician for the kids. Cut to Deja conspiring with her sisters to help change the subject at dinner to avoid the whole thing being a disaster. And wait a second here, is that Annie? Feels like I haven't seen her in a while. Randall comes down the stairs to witness the conspiracy, but he gets a call from Kevin. who's talking about Cassidy coming down to the cabin for the weekend. And Randall cannot resist making fun of Kevin, calling him the rare serial monogamist, making fun of his romantic history, and suggesting that he isn't exactly a one-night stand person, after all, despite the fact that he sleeps with literally everybody. Kevin thinks that the conversation was useless, but no, Kevin, you really should be listening to this. Randall's having fun at your expense, but there's truth here, and I think Kevin is fooling himself that all he is looking for here is sex, because he's not. He very much is not. He's looking for more. Interesting to note, this is the first time that Randall and Kevin have spoken to each other all season long. We cut to Kevin and Nikki and Cassidy and Edie having dinner. And wouldn't you know it, Nikki has some game. He seems to be doing really well with his new girlfriend. He ends up wondering, when talking to Kevin, if perhaps this is just another port in her storm. In other words, Nikki doesn't believe that this is something that's going to last very long, though I have a feeling he wants it to. Meanwhile, Nikki ends up asking if he's going to end up sleeping with Cassidy. And by the way, this is the first time that we've seen the three of them together since season 4. Kevin ends up remarking to Cassidy, "Hey, new love. It's quite nice." And he seems to be taking a great deal of joy out of Nikki and Edie's relationship. I can't help but think that the line to Cassidy is a subtle little hint that Kevin wants more. So subtle that she isn't going to pick up the hint until later when he gets significantly less subtle. Cut to continued adventures in speed dating. Rebecca has seemingly stopped talking about her dead husband and instead talking about Kevin, who's gone off to act. And while some of the dates continue to be duds, there's at least one guy that seems to not be a total dead end. We cut back to Kevin and Cassidy, and Kevin is trying to hire her to supervise the construction on the new house, the new cabin. She says that she will think about it. And then Kevin ends up inviting her to go get ice cream, which Cassidy gratefully accepts. Cut to awkward dinner scene 457. There have seemingly been a lot of these recently, with Deja and Malik. Malik, of course, serving dinner, having made it himself, and he seems to have done a good job. Despite the kids' efforts to distract from the issue at hand, Beth is not having it. She wants to cut through the BS and know what the heck is going on. And as it turns out, Deja wants to graduate from high school early, using the credits she got from AP, and then move down to Boston with Malik. From the looks of things, neither Beth nor Randall are particularly happy. In fact, I'm starting to believe that Randall would have preferred that Deja be pregnant after all. Kate returns home from her speed dating exercise with the guy that was not a dud. She goes into the house and encounters Kate, who wonders where was she coming back so late. Kate reveals what they were doing, and Kate is not happy and starts acting snotty in the worst possible way. Going so far as to say that Rebecca is acting like a slut, and that is when Kate gets slapped. A slap that she 100% deserves. Hell, I wanted to reach through the screen and slap her long before that. And I'm one that, generally speaking, likes the Hannah Zeal version of Kate. Rebecca is going to feel bad about this, but there is no question in my mind. She absolutely 100% deserved it. Present day, Rebecca is singing with Kate's kids. Kate smiles and then leaves to go make a phone call to Toby, and she remarks that she feels bad for all the time that they lost in their relationship, Kate being absolutely terrible to her mother before they patched things up. Fairly recently, Toby tries to assure her that she still has plenty of time with her mother, but that really isn't so certain, given Rebecca's condition. Kate alludes to something that she has to tell her mother later that day, and that doesn't sound too good. Cut to awkward dinner scene already in progress, and Randall is not happy at all. He's popping off, saying that this is not going to happen, that Deja is too young. Beth is trying to keep a cool head, but it's not working on Randall. Randall, in anger, says he doesn't need to listen to any of this, and he takes off from the dinner. Cut to Rebecca and Kate in the kitchen, the older version, the current version I should say, though both are technically accurate terms. Kate, with tears in her eyes, ends up telling Rebecca that Toby and her aren't comfortable with Rebecca being alone with the kids, due to her most recent scan. And while this is a tough scene, this is a tough thing for Kate to have to tell her mother, I can't say that it's not understandable, and maybe even correct. But Rebecca gets emotional and ends up leaving. It's a great, well-acted scene between the two. Hard to watch for sure, but very well acted and very true to life. Cut to Randall sitting on his doorstep. Malik comes out, and at this point, we think we're going to have a touching scene between these two, where Randall comes to his senses or they come to some kind of understanding. That's not what happens in this scene at all. It's another excellent scene. I've said before that Malik and Randall scenes are just pure magic. They're great together, and they're no less great here, even if this is not a good moment for them. Randall basically tries to talk Malik into dumping Deja so that she can have the life that Randall thinks she should have. He thinks she is too young to be going off and living with Malik and his kid and taking on that responsibility. Randall, I don't know how you expected this to go well, but it most definitely does not. Malik reacts in the way that you'd think he would. He's kind of pissed off, quietly so, but he tells Randall he's not going to mention this conversation to Deja because he doesn't want to do damage between that relationship. I can't tell you who's right in this scene. I just can't. But I am proud for Malik and his reactions and what he does in this scene. I'm significantly less enamored with how Randall chooses to handle things, but I don't know, it's a difficult situation. I'm not sure what a better way to do this would be. So, Randall takes an L here. We cut to Cassidy and Kevin, who are having ice cream and having a good time, when all of a sudden, Kevin tries to get romantic by grabbing her hand, which she objects to, and Kevin wonders why. Hey, I thought we were open to this, Kevin says. Oh, Cassidy says. Yes, I was open to sex, not the big romantic story that you have in your head. This is another example of Kevin forcing things. He's still trying to have the big, great romance story that Jack had. He's still trying to be Jack in that respect, and he falls on his face every single time he tries. Cassidy ends up putting him in his place, in a gentle and good-humored way, basically calling Kevin a wrecking ball that wrecks women's lives. Sophia, who he married, cheated on, and then almost got married to again. And then Madison, a one-night stand, leading to twins, and then a wedding in which he could not say, I love you. Cassidy ends up pointing out that she is too damaged to withstand Kevin the wrecking ball, so please, just leave her in peace. And she ends up pointing out he is chasing the wrong blonde. Kevin doesn't know which blonde she's talking about. And hey Kevin, that's part of the problem. So, Kevin ends up taking his L right here. The big three are 0-2 right now. We cut to Rebecca in the past, who's extremely upset after the incident with Kate. She ends up calling Miguel, who wants to know about coffee with the guy from speed dating. But she starts breaking down with grief and upset over what happened with Kate. Miguel offers no judgment and just sympathy. Overhearing this conversation is Kate, who has tears in her eyes and maybe gets a little bit of a sense of how much of a snot she was just being. We cut to Randall as he re-enters the house and ends up talking to Beth. He mentions the fact that he talked to Malik on his way out and that the conversation didn't go well. When Randall mentions the topic of the conversation and what he said, Beth is not exactly happy with him, thinking that he is making a mistake, comparing Malik and Deja to Romeo and Juliet, which is not exactly a perfect comparison, but I see your point. Randall wants to take a hardline stance against this, but Beth cautions against it, saying that this is very dangerous territory, and if they don't play it right, they could lose Deja. I'm tempted to chalk this up to another L for Randall, making it 0-3 for the big three, with Randall getting 2 losses. This is not a very good day for any of them, really. It's late at night. Kevin is lonely. He texts someone who we don't see. He asks, "You up?" And he gets a phone call. And he's annoyed that he got responded with a text with a phone call. And it turns out to be Isaac. Oh, no. Kevin, you're not going to try to sleep with Isaac now. Come on, you can't sleep with Madison's future boyfriend. What's wrong with you? Oh, okay, that's not what you're doing here. Whew, you scared me there for a moment, Kevin. Basically, Kevin ends up giving Isaac dating advice for how to be a boyfriend to Madison. So I get the feeling that Kevin has decided that Madison is not the blonde he should be chasing after either. Cut to Kate, who has decided to go over Rebecca's house, and they have a much calmer conversation, and that would be Kate in the present-day timeline. Rebecca realized she was overreacting and apologizes for snapping at Kate, and then Kate says, "It's not anything that I wasn't doing to you for years." Kate says that she's deeply sorry for that, and that she feels like she wasted so much time that could have been great between them. And then we have the idea of timing. Timing being important to everything. If Jack doesn't come into the bar the night that Rebecca is singing, they don't meet, and they don't create the big three. And then many more things had to happen in order for them, the two of them, to be sitting there together at that moment as best friends. That's a thing that Kevin misses in this episode. Relationships are all about timing, about being in the right headspace, the right time, with the right ideas, both having the same idea of what the relationship is going to be. It's honestly a wonder that any of us ever get together, because it is all about timing. Kevin and Cassidy are not in the right headspace at the right time to pursue a relationship together. Cassidy knows this. Kevin didn't know it as much. Timing led to Kevin and Madison not really ending up a good fit in a relationship because they didn't fall in love the way it typically happens. Kevin didn't make a decision to get into a relationship with Madison and then pursue a romance before eventually having kids after falling in love. No, he had the kids first and then tried to have a relationship and then tried to fall in love. Maybe that ends up working, maybe it doesn't. It's a crapshoot. But in Kevin's case, it didn't end up working out for him. He needs to stop forcing things and just let life happen. Kind of like Nikki and Edie. And however long it took for Kate and Rebecca to finally have the relationship that they have now. They have it now, and that is what is important. Cut to the past timeline, where Kate sees her mom playing the piano and decides to patch things up with her. Rebecca says that she won't date anymore, but Kate sadly says that no, she should continue to do so. And they don't quite bridge the gulf here, because they can't yet. That doesn't happen for many, many more years. But for the moment, they are at peace. Older Kate had come up with the idea to have Rebecca teach young Jack how to play the piano using Braille, and we see a much, much younger Kate playing the piano with her mother, and then in the teen timeline, and then as adults, connecting all those stories together. Kate, in this episode, is the only one that comes away with a win, leaving the big three 1 and 3, if you count Randall's losses as 2. At any rate, that was a pretty stellar episode. From the looks of things, we are about to go on a break, thanks to the Winter Olympics. So new episodes won't start up again until February 22nd, which gives me time to do rewatch videos of both past seasons of This Is Us and Quantum Leap. My intentions are to do This Is Us rewatches videos through at least the end of Season 2. And after that, whether I continue to do them or not depends on whether someone still has interest in seeing them. But at any rate, that's all I got for you for this video. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can join my Corman Production Facebook page. You can join my Corman Productions This Is Us discussion page. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can buy something from the Corman Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as myself. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. This is Dave from Corman Productions, signing off.